Hi everyone. This is the week that we begin to work with color. Yay! So I'm going to briefly go over some color theory for you. And I want you to know that in some art schools and some universities, you can take a whole class on color theory. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to unpack about the meanings of colors. And artists, some of the most successful, really utilize color as a way to connect to their viewers in a very kind of emotional, visceral way, because we do have emotional and visceral responses to various colors. So let's backtrack a little bit. Our modern understanding of light and color really begins with Sir Isaac Newton. And he published a series of experiments back in 1672 where he does these experiments I'm sorry, I cannot speak today, refracting white light from the sun through a prism. And what happens is when it goes through that prism, other colors are revealed. And it's the same kind of colors we see in the rainbow. Tend to be red, orange, yellow, blue, green, and violet. And then he also reconstructs that light that's been refracted back through a prism and it goes back to white light. So there's a lot of experiments with that. Basically, light, when we see colors emitted, it's transmitted and reflected, right? So an object may absorb some lights and then all we see back are the colors that the object is. I know this is very kind of confusing, but it hopefully as I talk more and I try to explain it more clearly, you will understand. So the visible light, this spectrum, this color spectrum, is not the only light that is out there. Infrared is a type of light, and in photography there used to be, and there may be someone maybe producing this film, but it was infrared film. So it would read light in a totally different way. And the way that the infrared film absorbed the light being transmitted back and reflected back onto the film was that anything that was alive, such as grass or trees, things like that, had a totally unexpected value than in a traditional film. It was really quite interesting. So trees and grass came back really white and vibrant and high contrast. And then there's ultraviolet light and X-rays, of course, radio waves, all this other, these variations of transmitting light. But we're going to go back to working with pigment color. This is one of the first color wheels made that we can find, that I could find an example of on the internet. And we're going to be making a color wheel. That's one of our assignments for this first color practice. So now the subtractive color method of thinking about color is in regards to pigment, such as paint, markers, things like that. And this is a fairly modern way of thinking about it. And basically, when you mix colors, you create a wider range of colors. And there is a partially or complete subtraction or absorbing. That sounded so weird coming out of my mouth. There is a result of partially or completely absorbing some of the wavelengths of colors. And so by mixing colors, we reveal others. The additive method is as if we are working with computer or some kind of light source, maybe televisions and things like that. And this begins with a black and ends with a white. And as more color is added, the results get lighter and tends to change. we're thinking of the RGB, red, green, blue, the CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, black. You know, that those are kind of more computer TV kinds of light where it's not light bouncing off the object like in subtractive method. It's white light traveling through color. Okay, so we are going to be making a subtractive color wheel. Please look at the handout. As you will, the design of your color wheel is just as important as making the color wheel. So you won't be just making a plain circular one like this. Hope you'll come up with some interesting designs. So what we have here is a 12-point color wheel. So let's start to dissect what makes up the color wheel. Okay, and just for this, for taking notes, why don't you go ahead and draw a circle and then divide it into 12 pie shapes. Okay, why don't you pause this video in order to do that? Okay, so we're going to start out with the primary colors. Primary colors are yellow, red, blue. So if you put yellow at the top, skip 3 places, and put red, and I always abbreviate these like YRB. Okay, these are what we call primary colors, and they are anchor points on the color wheel. Basically, what primary colors mean is they are not made by mixing any other colors. They have to be originally sourced. Okay, so from minerals, earth, stones, bugs, other things, you have to source these pigments. All right, but from these 3 pigments, you can mix any other colors in the color wheel. Okay, so when you continue on in painting, you will do more color wheels and more color mixing and all of that. And as you go and go and go, you will continue to do that. So now we have your yellow, red, blue colors marked down with 3 spaces in between. If you mix 50% of red and 50% of yellow, you get orange. If you mix 50% red with 50% blue, you get violet, or what's more popular name now is purple. Both will work. If you mix 50% blue with 50% yellow, you get green. So orange, purple, and green, these are secondary colors. All right. And I do want to tell you, just to go back really quickly to the primary colors, if you're looking at your paints, you may have cool primary colors or warm primary colors, and that can be kind of confusing. So sometimes when you mix your secondary, they're not exactly, like the purple may look more, you know, warmish than cool. So sometimes when you're mixing your purple, you may just have to add a little bit of white to it. That kind of helps. But yeah, so orange, purple, and green are secondary colors because you're mixing equal amounts of primary colors. So those are the second colors that are made. The tertiary colors, which is the next one, are colors that are mixed with 50% the primary and 50% of the secondary. And they're called tertiary, and it's spelled down there in the corner. And you label this with the primary first, then the secondary. So here we have yellow, orange. Then on the other side of the secondary, we have red, orange. This would be the red. Then we have red, violet. This is violet. Then we have blue, violet. The blue, blue, green. Green, yellow, green. Yellow, green, YG. You always have to name these with the primary and then the secondary. Okay? This is definitely going to be on the one and only test that we take. So you need to memorize this. All right. And if you're big into crayons, you might recognize the names as well. So again, then you have your 12-point color wheel, sorry. You have your 3 primary, 3 secondary, and 6 tertiary colors. It is possible to make just a 6-point color wheel, right? But it's typically standard color wheel tends to be 12 points. And then, like I said, the further you get onto some painting classes, you will end up tripling, quadrupling this number. I can remember in undergraduate school, one semester, I feel like I just mixed paints for the first month, but it's something you have to do in order to understand the colors that are possible, you know, from those 3 primary colors. It's really quite amazing. Now, if you guys did purchase a multitude of colors, you do not have to mix them, but you might try to, you know, you can go directly from your paints, but it also doesn't hurt to try to mix all these colors. All right, so if there's any questions about a 12-point color wheel, please email me, let me know. But we're going to move on. So other things you kind of need to know are that colors that are opposite each other on the 12-point color wheel are called complementary colors. Opposites on the color wheel are called complementary colors. And what that means basically is that they go well together. They create contrast, which makes our rods and cones vibrate, which is color's way of making contrast. And you might recognize that some of these colors are of athletic teams that you may follow. Yellow and purple, isn't that ECU? Blue and orange, isn't that the Broncos? Yellow and purple is also LA Lakers. But in this diagram, it only is showing the primaries with the secondaries, but tertiaries can be complements too, right? It's any color that's across from it. So this yellow orange is a complement of blue purple. All right. So complementary, opposites on the color wheel. There is an example. Colors that are next to each other on the color wheel are called analogous. Analogous are colors that are next to each other. So here we have red and red-orange. That could go all the way to orange and yellow-orange, or even to the red-violet and violet. It doesn't matter. As long as they're next to each other, it can be at the minimum of 2, but is often sometimes more for analogous colors. Yeah. Okay, triadic colors are 3 colors that are basically equal distance from each other on the color wheel. Primary colors are triadic. And these may, if you go into graphic design, which we have a really cool new department that's graphic design oriented, you will study color theory much deeper than we will get to in this class. You know, if you're designing someone's logo, you know, they may have colors that you need to match, and so you've got to do something with that. Or if someone's asking you to design something, you know, there are color relationships that pop more than others. And so you will have to, you know, be much more familiar with that if you're getting into that. And again, you know, this is just an introductory class, so you will learn more color theory as you go on. Another, you know, color relationship that can work a lot of times is split complementary. So instead of being exactly opposite from a color, where orange and blue would be, the blue is kind of being split and it's going for the blue green and the blue purple, and those 3 colors work well together as well. All right, monochromatic Mono meaning one, chromatic meaning, or chrome meaning color. That's one color, and there can be variations of that one color. And if you're working with just your blue paint and black and white, as you add a little bit of white, it goes lighter. And if you add a little bit of black, it gradually will go darker each time you add more color. So this is a monochromatic color scheme. The yellows and red up to red violet tend to be warmer colors. They depict things that are hot. If you think about fire and sun and all of that, they're usually in that color range. And cool colors represents things that are cool to touch. Water, grass, the sky, right? Even, snow, not necessarily snow, but cold winter days without the sun tend to be blue, right? So this is the visceral kind of response to color that you can get if you want someone to feel a certain way. Hue is another kind of more artsy term. Well, it is an artsy term for color, hue. It's about how saturated it is, how concentrated the pigment is. Have you added any white or black yet? That would be the hue, a pure hue or pure color. When you add white to color, it's called a tint or a highlight. If you add black to the hue, it becomes a shade or the shadow values, right? Okay, so also we respond to colors differently. Very saturated colors where no white or black has been added are very exciting. They're very dynamic and they attract our attention. So if you think about these colors as you're driving around, think about various gas stations and drugstores and fast food restaurants that are trying to make you pull over. Those colors tend to be really rich and saturated and have high contrast, and they stand out because it'll slow us down and make us look. Desaturated colors, that means basically the intensity has been lightened by adding white, and there's not as much raw pigment in there. They tend to be read as very friendly, but also they don't attract the same attention, so you'll just kind of go by them. But these are very popular colors for our living spaces. A lighter tan, lighter blue, things like that we have around our house. Desaturated colors, which are on the darker spectrum and do have black added to it, they are seen as more serious, more professional. If you've ever been into, serious libraries, they will be darker in colors. If you've been into a law office, their walls will not be hot pink. They will be darker tan, dark blue. Their furniture will be mahogany, this dark color, right? In the 80s, it was maroon and this emerald green color that was very popular. It was everywhere. But those are you'll take the people that reside in those kinds of offices or buildings or whatever more seriously than you would something that's really brightly colored. So this is kind of known to us. We've seen it. It's through pictures, through television, through actual experience that we learn these things. I keep clicking the wrong arrow there. So the value that we see in colors, the contrast that's created when someone works with color is when you do put complementary colors together, the opposites. And Vincent van Gogh was a colorist. He was very interested in how colors worked off of each other. And because of his awareness of his mental disabilities, he expressed himself through his colors, and he would use colors to also kind of show emotion and meaning. And this is his bedroom. This is where he lived in France, where he painted. He had moved away from his family, and he was supported by his brother Theo. And do you see the contrast here? It's very bright. It's stimulating. It seems vibrant, right? Now imagine this in black and white. There is none of that liveliness there. Now there is some contrast because the very light yellow sheets and pillows reflects as white, and the window frame and the frame of the mirror, are dark. And so there's a little bit of contrast there, but none of that vibrancy, none of that kind of movement that happens if you pay attention to what your eyes are doing. When you see complementary, your rods and cones kind of vibrate. They start to kind of shake a little bit. And if you stare for a long time, you can almost feel it. This is kind of a little test, but is the red square in the middle the same color in each square? The answer is yes, they are. But look how different they look. More muted in the red with the orange, right? Very vibrant in the other colors. So this one is more analogous. This one is more complementary. Red and green are complements, and this is kind of a blue-green, but still. This bar here is the same purple in both squares, but see how different they respond based on the value of the color that surrounds it. This one vibrates or, kind of stands out more than this one, where the value is a little bit more similar. This is kind of tricky because in the black and the white, the two gray bars look the same value. They look the same. But it's only when they're put against another gray that you can see the top one is lighter than the bottom. These are just subtle kind of tricks that our brains make. We don't make the connection until we see something where it distinguishes those colors. Okay. This is kind of I don't know if this will work virtually. Hopefully it will. It works in the classroom. But I want you to stare at this red screen with the green geese. Okay? I want you to stare at it for about 30 minutes. Try not to blink. Try not to move your eyes around it. Just literally stare at one spot. I'm going to wait the 30 seconds rather, sorry. Okay, keep staring. If your eyes, can you feel them start to kind of blur and they're reacting to that contrast? Just keep looking through it. Just keep staring. You almost see like echoes of the birds. Keep staring. Now stare at this. What is the after image that you see? What colors do you see? If you don't see anything, go back and do it again. But did you see this? So this is the after image. This is what happens when you're looking at complementary colors. That vibration that happens with your rods and cones, it stresses the eye out a little bit. And so it starts to show something else. And that is called an after image. Cool, right? It's a fun little trick. Okay, so let's talk about the meanings of colors. Okay, red is a color of extremes. In that, it is the color of passion, of love and seduction, but also violence, danger, anger, and hell. It's the color of blood. It's the color that is bold. It's one of the colors that we can see very quickly in a composition. Here's the truth of it all. Our eyes tend to go to the brightest spot first, and then we see other colors. And so mixed with the red that is very vibrant, that grabs our attention very easily. So it's very powerful. Some of the meanings are warmth, boldness, excitement, desire, courage, also speed, strength, and energy. In China, women wear red when they get married. In the Greeks, red symbolizes superhuman heroism. And in Christianity, it's the color of the crucifixion. It's very in the past, in ancient times, red was very rare, very rare. Purple is more rare, but red was pretty rare. And the color red is the number 2 favorite color of most people. Here, look at these red covered tree stumps in this forest. There's a young man kind of roaming around in here. Think about what does that red symbolizes? Are we talking about passion here? No, right? We're talking about anger, death, blood. These trees have been chopped, therefore they have scarred the earth, right? So you got to think, I'm going to ask you to kind of think about that. It's a very interesting piece here. Now, the red districts symbolize the sex and pornography district in every European culture. Here, the scarlet letter A, right? She could be seen. She couldn't get away from that, everyone knowing that attention to her A and her sins, if you will. And, really, again, red is one of the most, seen colors. Think of fire engines are red, right? Stop signs are red. Now, have you guys seen the Schindler's List? There is a portion in that movie where it's a black and white movie. Steven Spielberg decided to film it in black and white, and there's only a very short, maybe 3-minute section that's in red, and it's this little girl is walking around these people that are being gathered and put on trains and gathered and killed, and you see German soldiers rifling through people's things. It's really kind of a hard scene, but this one little girl walks through it, and she's dressed in a red coat. And you got to think about, you can watch the YouTube on, there's a YouTube video of this section out there, so you can watch it. And you got to think about, why is this one little girl in red? What do you think that's symbolizing? I would say that it's symbolizing the courage of this one girl, but also the blood of the innocent, right? People were killed only because of their religion, nothing else. And they killed children too, of course. And they're probably the most innocent of all, because they don't, they're not choosing what religion they are. They're not choosing who they are born to. And yet they, fell victim as well. And so I feel like it was Spielberg's way of showing that, of expressing that, right? So it's a horrible movie. Everyone should see it once. It's one I don't watch again because it was just horrifying. But yeah, so that's red. Very significant, powerful color. Yellow. Basically, yellow is the most luminous of all colors on the spectrum. It captures attention more really than even red. And so it's a very interesting color. It's caution tape, right? It's police, it's surrounding an area being caution. When people ride their bikes at night, some wear yellow reflective vests, right? So It has a liveliness quality to it. It's happy color. It's the color of summer and spring and the sun being out. And so it has those happy, optimistic connotations. But it's also a color of enlightenment and intelligence and creativity. The downside to yellow is that it's also the color of conflict and cowardliness. You yellow bellied, I don't know that we say that anymore, but back in the olden days, you yellow bellied lizard, come back here. That kind of comment, calling somebody out for being a coward. The other connotations. Let's see. Yellow is the warning sign on traffic lights, right? The human eye processes yellow first, and that's probably why it's the color of some emergency vehicles. And yeah. Okay. The next color is blue. Blue is the all-time favorite color of most people. I mean, it's generally the most favorite color. And it's a color of water and sky. It's a color of cool things. But it's a rare color to be found in nature other than those two places. I think of blueberries and bluebonnets, and they tend to be actually a little bit more purple, blue purple, than blue. But blue symbolizes peace, professionalism, loyalty, reliability, honor. And so a lot of times it's associated with police officers and things like that. The downside, the opposite side of all those positives is that, it's a color of depression. When you're feeling sad, you're feeling blues. Blues music is all kind of about the woes of one's life, right? And so it can symbolize those things. It can symbolize boredom and those kind of issues as well. But they say if you wear a blue suit to an interview, you are more likely to get the job than with any other color because of that professionalism that you portray and that sense of authority. Yeah, so 53% of all flags in the world contain the color blue, and it's also one of the most commonly used colors in corporate logos. And aristocracy is often referred to being blue-blooded in all European languages. Yeah, so it's a very trustworthy, dignified color, but also symbolizes depression. So green. Green is my favorite color. I love the color green. The cool thing about green now, it's not just a color, it's a movement, right? It's a symbol of ecology. It's now a verb. You can be green. You can be living a green life. And the symbol rather, is really about growth and rebirth and fertility. And in pagan times, there was this green man who was a symbol of fertility. In Muslim countries, green is the color of, it's a holy color, rather. And in Ireland, of course, it's a very lucky color. And it was the color of the heavens during the Ming Dynasty. So rebirth, fertility, reliability, environmental, also luxurious, right? The Benjamins, the green is very common. It's honest, it's spring, all of those things. The downside is that it is envious. Green is envious. Green also means go. And it's basically, universally, it's seen as a color of nature. Now look at this painting. This acid green. This is referring to nature, but not necessarily in a positive way, maybe a polluted way too. So you can really kind of play with these colors quite a bit. Traffic lights, again, is a universal all over the world. Traffic lights mean go. Yeah. So, and good luck. Okay, I have this weird little fact. Circus and traveling showmen in Australia consider green to be bad luck. And they're saying is another English rhyme, married in green, ashamed to be seen. Not sure I would get married in green, but I do like the color. Purple. Purple is one of the most rare colors to be found in nature. And therefore, there's a lot of interesting things that are associated with the color purple. Because it's so rare, it's attached to supernatural things and royalty, which is also fairly rare. It is the most powerful color in a rainbow, however, and over time, throughout history, it's kind of evolved, but it does represent power, royalty, nobility, and elegance, right? And sophistication. Also, it's artificial and a bit of mystery involved with the color. And so it's seen as magic, which depends on how you feel about that. Can be good or bad. The negative meanings of the color purple are decadence, conceit, and being a pompous, you know what. But also purple is the color of mourning. And in some churches around Easter, they drape the cross with purple. And so, and young kids love the color purple. And as you grow older, it's a color you either become to love or hate. There's really no in between. It's also true for yellow. Yellow and purple tend to be the colors that you really either love and gravitate to, or the ones you are repulsed by. In America, we award the Purple Heart for bravery. Again, it's kind of a rare thing, and so that goes along with the color and what we know about the color. And also, the color purple has been used in the care for the mentally nervous. So if you have a nervous disorder, it can help you balance your mind, right? And transition you from a place that finds you, that takes you away from your fears. I believe in that stuff, you guys. I don't know if you do, but there's something to it. Okay, orange is also a very vibrant color. It is hot, it's healthy, it's it's one of those things, what came first, the fruit or the color? I don't know. It keeps me up at night. It is a very polarizing color, but it's very vibrant. We see it first. So a lot of our school buses tend to be this yellowy orange color because it stands out no matter what the weather is. And so it could be seen, very easily. Same thing with the street cones and things like that can direct traffic. So there's a lot of energy to the colors. It's also the color of discount, low cost, affordability, and aggression. People get mad and are angry. Here, this is a photograph I took when I was in New York City several years ago and was able to see a Jean-Claude and Christo installation of the gates in Central Park. And it was during winter, as you can see. And look how brightly that orange stands out amongst the overcast day, it's kind of dull, there's no greenery on the trees, you know, that orange just pops. And it's a color that keeps coming back in trend. It's a color of the 70s, and then it came back, I think, in the late 200s. It was trendy again. It's a color that's it's a color that's associated with vitamin C. It's associated with autumn, the fall, right? Pumpkins. It is also a color used to increase your immunity and increase sexual potency. It also helps digest food. So there you go. All right, so those are basically the color theory wrapped up. All right, watch the next video to see what your assignment is.